Hello and welcome to another episode of Starside Chat. I am one of your hosts, Aaron, and with me as always is Zach. How's it going, Zach?
Good. A lot of big news this week. The last couple of weeks we didn't have as much news, so a lot of interesting things to talk about.
We should hit it off right off the top. Probably the biggest thing we'll talk about, well, Baldur's Gate 3 came out and everyone has lots of opinions on it, but Nintendo is targeting the second half of 2024 for its next generation console release. Apparently dev kits are already in the hands of third-party developers, and we could see, I don't know, I was looking back at when they announced the Switch. They announced it in, like, there was a direct where we got our first video of it in, I think, October. And then it came out the following March. So a pretty quick turnaround. So we probably won't see footage of this thing for a little bit of time, but exciting.
Yeah, I mean, the way they have it positioned for second half of 2024, they could almost wait until around E3 time and have a big Nintendo Direct about it. But yeah, now, they claim that it's because they're trying to avoid like shortages, like the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and S had when they launched. But I was listening to, I think it was Kit and Krista, because they used to work at Nintendo, and they were talking about this. They said, now normally Nintendo would launch something in like the first half of the year, like they did with the first gen Switch. I don't remember... what they did with the Wii and Wii U when those launched.
I also don't remember.
But the reason they would do that is because you get like the real enthusiasts to come out and they'll buy it day one and it'll go out of stock. But then you have like 6 to 8 months after that to restock so that the parents have a chance to get one for their kids for Christmas, which makes sense as a strategy. But I mean, I guess if you're delaying it so that you can have the amount of stock necessary, I guess that works. Or maybe that's just an excuse that they said because it was not going to be ready before that. But
so the only thing I've heard about this, because I mean, third-party developers have it, but it's pretty much I don't believe there's been any like pictures of it, the dev kit at least online. But I did hear someone say that it has an LED screen or LCD as opposed to an OLED.
Yeah.
Speculation is probably that they just want to sell a second one with an OLED later on.
Yeah.
But the real thing I've learned from this is that it has a screen on it. So it will still be some sort of handheld, I assume.
Yeah. So the Video Games Chronicle article that like got everybody talking this week about the Switch 2, although they're not calling it Switch 2, Nintendo, we're just all saying that's probably what it's called.
I still maintain that it will be called something like the Flip Switch or something, and it's going to fold in some way.
I can see it being called something like the Super Nintendo Switch, because that would be cool.
Oh, that is a good name for it.
But no, they confirmed or suggested, I guess is the correct word to use, that the console is going to launch with an LCD screen instead of the OLED, and that would help bring costs down. But you're right, everybody is speculating, well, okay, they're just following the model that they did with the first gen one, where they released an LCD screen, and then later they were able to do sort of a faux premium Pro model that did not increase the internals in any way, but just had like a bigger nicer screen to it. And I think people want like better battery life. They want like an SSD so loading times are better, which you can.
Wouldn't that be crazy?
They're super small now, SSDs. Yeah. So I feel like they could put one in there. And they want better frame rates for games. They don't want to see the next Pokemon come out and have it be as sort of horrendous as the last one was, in terms of like you look 10 feet away from the player character and everything's moving at like 4 frames a second.
Well, this brings up a good point. What do you think the odds are that this is going to be backwards compatible with the Switch? Like it will continue to use the same cartridges? Well,
so the Video Games Chronicle article did say that it would have a port for game carts.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone's speculating that either it will basically use the same sized cart as the first gen Switch, or it will do like what they did with one of the 3DS models, where it had like, or maybe it was like one of the old DS models that had like the port for the DS games, but it also had a port for like Game Boy Advance games. So it just like had an additional port on it so that you could plug more games into it. So I mean, either way, I feel like they should know that backwards compatibility is like a huge thing. Like I know they couldn't do it with going from Wii U to Switch because it's a different type of game system where it doesn't have a disc, it has a cartridge. Yeah. And so obviously there's no disc port, but if they're going to keep the same like portable and home console thing, I mean, I don't know why they would go away from that.
Wouldn't it be crazy if they came up with it, like if they're doing what you say they would and have like multiple ports, which I think is a really cool idea, just aesthetically, I think it looks cool. What if the new cart they came up with for this one is like the size of a playing card or something? Don't get me wrong, I like how the Switch cartridges look, but they're so small, and I always feel like I'm going to break them when I'm handling them. If it's like a hefty thing, like the size of a playing card that I slot in like 80s style futurism, I think that'd be very cool.
I feel like you basically want the original Game Boy size cartridges.
Yeah, that would be great actually. That's a perfect size. And it would give them more space on the cartridge because
that would be famously great. Like they would have a lot more space to work with.
How much can you fit on a cart? I think it's only like less than 15 gigs, isn't it? Isn't it something crazy small?
I think it's like 32 gigs the Switch has internal memory of 32 gigs, I should say. So like if you're going to download a game, like they have that much space to work with. So their games are much, much smaller than that, which is crazy considering what they've done with them. But yeah, I don't know.
It's got to have, I mean, iteratively, every one of Nintendo's consoles has been pretty different from the previous one. I guess the least so would be like the Super Nintendo to like Nintendo to Super Nintendo was like pretty much the same, except the controllers were a little different. But I mean, it seems like they switch stuff up every time. So I'm so curious if they've just like, we're in an age now where it's modernity and they just realize like, okay, we have our formula. We don't need to mess up the form factor too much. Or if they do go crazy and they're like, okay, this one folds and Joy-Cons look insane now. I mean, what do you see this thing looking like?
Honestly, I don't know that they will deviate too much from the first gen Switch. Like, I think they will try to do the Joy-Cons differently, so at the very least there's not stick drift, and maybe they just look a little bit different. Maybe they're a little bit more ergonomic, but I don't know. Like I said, I think backwards compatibility is a thing that they're gonna be thinking about, and so you don't really have a lot of games that do motion control, but you do have some, and I'm sure they would like to still be able to like remake and port old like Wii and Wii U games that probably did have motion control. So they probably will do some of that.
I remember before the Switch came out, speculation, there was already rumors going around that like, oh, it's going to have like detachable controllers. Isn't that crazy? And one illustration I saw, which was not like an official one, it was just someone speculating, was that some games would be paired with a specific Joy-Con, where like the illustration that I saw was pretty accurate up until like it showed like what a Switch would be, except for the right Joy-Con would come off and it would be replaced with like a GameCube looking controller, like half of a controller, or like a fishing pole with a crank on it. And so they were speculating that like, you know, the controller could be completely modular, like a game would be bundled with like a super big controller with extra buttons on it or something that you would slot into the left or right, or, you know, into the little plastic controller. But that's something they could do, is like maybe have like a wide range of Joy-Cons you can choose from that have different functionality.
Yeah, that's definitely the road not taken with the first gen Switch. Now that you say that, I don't know why there's like some, you know, third-party company didn't come up with a fishing game that they also bundled like their own little attachable like fishing Joy-Con.
I think that's a really good idea.
Yeah, I can see it like them doing some like fun weird things like that. Like Nintendo shipped that whole cardboard thing.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
remember that? That's crazy.
If Labo could exist, I don't know why they couldn't make all kinds of different weird shaped Joy-Cons and have them be like, the game wouldn't be, you know, not playable unless you had that one, but it would be like, oh, this is the ideal way to play this.
Do you think that the launch title is going to be Mario?
Well, I was going to say, it's hard to know now because they're going to have a 2D Mario this fall.
Yeah,
but I mean,
true.
that could have just been made by a different team while somebody else is working on Super Mario Odyssey 2. We thought for a long time that it was going to be Tears of the Kingdom, but obviously that was probably intended to be for the Switch Pro, and then it turned into the OLED because of chip shortages, and then the Tears of the Kingdom got delayed, so they had to split everything up. But I can see the next Mario Kart game being a launch title. I could see that rumored Donkey Kong game. Keeping my fingers crossed. Or, Metroid Prime 4.
Yeah, that's another good one. That's one where they could package in a Joy-Con that is like her hand cannon or whatever.
Yeah, they could do something really weird and interesting with it. And that's another game that I feel like is big enough to warrant its own themed Switch release. You know how they do that with like they had the Tears of the Kingdom one and they had these other ones. I guess they didn't do that for Breath of the Wild and Super Mario Odyssey, even though those would have been perfect choices for something like that. But I was going to say, how weird would it be if they launched Switch 2, here's the standard model, here's a boxed bundle that includes Metroid Prime 4 with its own themed Switch.
That would be cool. I could see them doing that.
That would be cool. I kind of don't think they will. If it's launch anyway, I could see if it's like delayed until like a year later or something like that, I could see them doing that. But
you and I famously stood outside a very cold Best Buy when the Switch came out. We went to go see Logan, a very late showing of Logan, and then we hung out in front of a Best Buy for like an hour. Do you think you would do a midnight launch for whatever this is in like 2024?
It's a good question. I think I'm more apt to do it now than I would have been then. Like, I didn't pre-order the Switch, and I wasn't planning on going to the midnight launch. You talked me into it, and then we just happened to work with somebody who also worked part-time at Best Buy and had some insider knowledge that they were going to have additional Switches for people who hadn't pre-ordered. And so I was like, well, I might as well go try to get one, and it worked out. So I would have to plan ahead much better than I did last time. But I could maybe see doing that, just because I am so excited about the next generation of the Switch. Like, I want one has more powerful internals so it can run things better and have like potentially higher frame rates than I don't know. Frame rate is sort of a weird topic of discussion when it comes to consoles, because we thought that the PS5 and Xbox Series X generation was going to be defined by like that improvement of like sort of the base of frame rates, where the previous generations, most games, the sort of base was 30 frames a second. And every now and then you'd get like a Call of Duty that had upped it to 60 or, you would see like the wild difference it makes going from like Destiny on console running at 30 frames a second to seeing it run on PC at like 120 frames a second.
Yeah.
You're like, wow, this is like miles better looking in every possible way. And that really kind of hasn't materialized, where I think PlayStation has done a pretty good job of having like a performance mode and a high resolution mode. And I pretty much always play things in performance mode when given the option. Xbox hasn't really done that. They've sort of like Redfall and I think even maybe Atomic Heart. I'm not sure about that one. But for sure Starfield, those are going to launch on console at 30 frames a second. And there's no like optional performance mode. Supposedly they're going to add one to Redfall at some point. I don't know if they already have or not, but I don't know if it's just like graphics are getting so good and like resolution is like such a priority still for people that like the dream of consoles having sort of a base of 60 frames a second and the option to go even higher is really just not happening this generation the way we thought it was going to, or what. But I feel like we're going to be a little bit disappointed when the Switch 2 launches and it's still running things at 30 frames a second. But I feel
this brings up an interesting point.
Okay.
Because third parties have the hardware and they're like developing games for it. That's great. But that means that the hardware is locked in, I think. So do you think that a Steam Deck is more powerful than what the Switch 2 will be?
That's a good question. Because the Steam Deck also does not run things at like 1080. And I guess it can. I think it's like just under that.
Yeah.
And like,
but it can run a lot.
For the portable screen, I would say like 1080 is fine. Like, I feel like we learned this years ago with smartphones, where everybody was trying to make these 4K screens for their smartphones. And people were like, the screen is small enough that I really can't pixel peep close enough to tell the difference between 1080p and 1440p and like 4K. So on a screen that size, it doesn't matter. And the only thing that you're doing by bumping it up to 4K is draining your battery life faster. So if you want better battery life on a portable screen, like somewhere between 720 and 1080p is fine.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to discern the difference.
Exactly. Well, and you're also not going to be holding up two devices side by side to be like, oh, that one looks better.
Yeah.
You know? So like nobody's going to care. But it's the dock that is going to have to make the difference. That's going to have some sort of upscaling ability, which was the rumor for the Switch Pro. So I feel like that's a possibility that it will have some sort of upscaling. Now, I'll also say, when I play a game on my 4K TV on the Switch, I don't know if it's just that their art style is good enough that you don't think about it, but I don't generally think, man, I wish this was 4K.
Yeah, I mean, Mario looks so slick and runs so smoothly. Like, Mario Odyssey even looks great on a 4K TV, but...
This is why I continue to maintain that frame rate is far more important to your game than resolution.
I think you're right.
I think, like, if the PS5 and the Xbox Series X ran things capped at 1080p, but gave you 120 frames a second, I would take that every time. And it would, I think because Destiny is my big example. It was so mind-blowing going from playing that game at like over 100 frames a second from 30. It wasn't just the graphics or, you know, the frame rate that looked better. It, like, everything looked better in that game when you made, just by making that one switch. So yeah, I really think frame rate is the way to go. I don't know that that's going to be possible on a portable like this. Not, like you said, the Steam Deck is a little bit more capable in terms of like your frame rates, but you do have to kind of sacrifice resolution, and usually you're not even always getting to 60 frames. Sometimes it's like 40, 50, something like that, which I mean is better, but yeah, that's the other question is, will it still have detachable Joy-Cons? Will it be a little bit beefier and be like a Steam Deck, or is that what you want?
I don't know. That's a good question. I feel like it has to have the detachable Joy-Cons at this point. But do you think they're going to redo their online stuff? Like, because a bunch of people this generation bought stuff digitally on their Switch. Do you think that will transfer over to whatever the next one is?
I hope so. I do think like they need to completely revamp the eShop and like the dashboard of the Switch for Switch 2. My other thing that I really want from the next generation of Nintendo consoles is a commitment to like online modes, online gaming, because Like right now, it's awful. If you want to play Mario Kart with your friend, you have to like go onto an app on your phone and like to get voice chat. Like this is like basic stuff that we've had on other consoles since like the 360 and PS3 generation.
The Xbox, can't you just like have Discord on Xbox now?
Yeah, I think you maybe can you have them on both, or is it just Xbox?
I don't know. I just saw an article, though, about how they're going to enable, coming up, the ability to stream your game to friends.
Yeah, I saw that too. Yeah, that's
which
cool.
is great.
Yeah, they definitely need to make a more robust online offering. And I think that goes for their games as well. It's not just about, like, coming up to feature parity with, like, online stuff with the PlayStation and the Xbox. I think it's also, like, thinking about the next generation of like Mario Kart as an example. Like right now, they keep releasing more map packs and like additional characters every now and then. And I'm like, that's great and all, but I only play Mario Kart when I have like when I'm hanging out with family because it's like a party game to me. But if there was like some sort of progression system or some sort of like carrot on the stick as like an online mode, I might play it even at home by myself. But like right now, I'm not really incentivized to do so because I don't really care that much about racing. But yeah, and I think that could have been the same with like Luigi's Mansion that had that online mode that I actually did play and enjoy. But I was like, what if there was like, I'm not saying it has to go like full Call of Duty or like, what was that Disney kart racer game that came out?
Oh, I don't even remember.
Yeah, that game, I don't know if that seems like a bad approach to it, but if there's something there to get you to like level up and progress and like unlock stuff, even if it's just like entirely cosmetic, which is what it should be, but like I feel like they need that to keep people invested in their games, but I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
Do you think it's going to have a camera?
That's a good question. Well, the 3DS had one, so maybe.
I went to that arcade a couple weeks ago, and they had, I think it was like Cruisin' Blast or something, and that arcade cabinet, that like racing arcade cabinet, had a thing where if you and someone who's playing next to you are playing together in the same game, before the race starts, it's like, look up, we'll take a picture of your face.
Oh, yeah, and I remember that.
It like snaps a picture, and then like in the game, above your car, you can see like your face, which was a cool thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if I need that on a Switch, but it's interesting.
If they did, like, I think the 360 had the ability to use like the Kinect camera to like take a picture of you and then sort of model that into like their avatar system. Am I wrong about that? I feel like that was a thing that they had, or maybe it was even in some games you could like use it to make an in-game character using your face.
I don't know.
I don't remember. I feel like that was a thing that existed at one point. And maybe it could come back in some way.
Very exciting stuff. I can't wait for the second half of 2024.
I want to know the launch lineup.
Yeah. That's going to be, I mean, they know how powerful having a good launch lineup is. Like, they launched with maybe one of the best games ever made with the Switch, with Zelda, or N1-2 Switch, of course.
No. Snipper clips. Everybody was
so
out
you've
there
got to imagine. Snipper Clips is great.
Yeah, so I'm sure some of the stuff that we've been waiting for a number of years has probably been pulled for Switch 2 at this point. But yeah.
Should we move on to
more Nintendo-related news?
Yeah.
So there was, I believe, Sakurai, who has a YouTube channel, like talked about it a little bit maybe on his YouTube channel, but there was like an interview with him, I think, where they were talking about the future of Smash. And I think the big takeaway was that he was saying that he doesn't see the series moving forward without him, which I think is good because people want him involved. But people are also very concerned about his work life balance.
Yeah, because he was pushing pretty hard.
Yeah. And they did ask him about the future, like, would they make another one? And he basically said, if they were going to do another one, they might have to shrink the roster. But they're not sure if that was something that fans would be pleased with. And
well, part of that has to be licensing, because I mean, like, I feel like they had to move Heaven and Earth to get all the Final Fantasy people back and to get like Snake from Solid Snake.
Yeah, I wonder about that, if that's like a big expense for them on that.
I mean, I feel like they went all out with Ultimate. They made a big deal of saying everyone is here that has ever been here. So I think to fully reboot it, I think they'd have to. They couldn't go like Ultimate Plus or whatever, Plus Ultra. So I guess, I mean, I see where he's coming from, where they just need a hard reset of like, we did the ultimate version of what Smash is. We can't go beyond that. We perfected it. So now when we iterate on it, it has to be a new thing.
Would that involve like changing the controls, like the simplified sort of combat controls of that game?
I don't know. It's a good question, because that is like something that pulls people in and makes it so approachable, is that it's just like you have, forward B, back B, down B, up B.
He did also talk about how he had put so much work into it himself that Smash had basically, it had too much of his own personality in it, and he thinks if it was going to move forward, they would need to sort of eliminate the dependence on just like his vision for what Smash is, and that they need to maybe have multiple people sort of putting their vision into it.
The problem with it is that it's such a pure formula. At least it seems that way on the outside. Like, you've got the characters, they have very basic movesets, you have large arenas. I feel like if they add anything to it, it's just going to feel like, man, I wish I could play this, but like in the pure version of it, that's just like two characters going against each other, Like if they add like how that new Mortal Kombat game has like extra characters that you can call in to do extra combos. I don't know. I don't think that works for a Smash, because it's just like such a pure, clean format. Yeah,
I mean, and the fighting game genre has a little bit moved Smash's direction in terms of like that simplified approach to controls, because even like Street Fighter 6 had like a simplified control scheme that was not necessarily exactly like Smash, but a little bit closer to it. Or at least this is what I've heard. I've not played it, but I think it's interesting to think about what it could possibly be, because of the fact that Ultimate exists, and it's going to be hard to top that one. And like we talked about a little bit before we started recording, it almost feels like it's expanded in such a big way that it's a little bit like what Assassin's Creed is doing, where they're sort of going back to the basics and sort of making a smaller game. And maybe that is where we're at with Smash, where it just needs to reset a little bit. And I'm trying to even think of what different characters they could bring in that hadn't been in Ultimate, because it would feel a little bit disappointing to get like a really pared down roster and then have them just like slowly re-add characters that already were in it, which I'm sure will happen if that happens.
I could see them, like, a thing that I really think they should do is revamp characters that are like been in there forever, because Mario is so iconic, but I don't feel like his stuff reflects that. Like, I think, doesn't he have just like a cape is one of his moves?
Yeah, and he has like the fireball and everything. Like, yeah, what if he was like Cat Mario?
Exactly, yeah. Cat, or like Luigi just has a bunch of random moves, but he doesn't use his like vacuum at all, and his main deal now is Luigi's Mansion. So like,
that's true.
Give him all these give him Gooigi,
yeah, and I also wonder, because like a lot of companies have been bought up by other companies, and so maybe like the changing hands of some of the properties is maybe complicates making another Smash, but I don't know.
What if they did packs? This idea is just forming in my head right now, and maybe it's not really realistic, but if they did like mini games where like it's like Smash Mario Universe, Smash Pokemon Universe, where like it's like Pokemon v Pokemon, or it's something where you buy it and add it on. So like it comes out, Smash is just Mario Universe, so you get like Donkey Kong and stuff, but then the next like wave, or however they want to describe it, is like, now here's the Pokemon wave, and you get like, 20 Pokemon or something. I don't know. I really don't know how they would structure it to make it feel fresh and new, where it doesn't just look. They did such a good job with Ultimate. I don't know. They've put themselves in an impossible place.
Yeah, and that it sells so well, and it's like such a big sort of competitive scene that it would be crazy to abandon it because they made the Ultimate version. Maybe they do sort of a Mario Kart 8 Deluxe thing where they port it to Switch 2 and it has some upgrades or whatever. But
well, they could do that, and they could say, and all of the DLC characters are included. So I've never bought any of the DLC characters for whatever reason.
Yeah, but I didn't either.
I mean, it would be interesting to have, the Minecraft guy, Steve, check out what he's all about. Yeah,
I would check out Joker from Persona. I was very curious about that when they launched that, but I was like, I just don't play Smash enough to warrant buying this, so I never did.
I agree.
Speaking of Nintendo stuff, there was a Pokemon Direct, or there's going to be this coming week.
Yes, on Tuesday, they're going to have a 35-minute Pokemon Presents. So it's going to be a lot of content. Who knows what's going to be there, but it's going to be 35 minutes of content. So it's going to be substantial.
Yeah, I was trying to think of what could be covered. Like they have ongoing things. I'm sure they launched that like sleep app, and of course Pokemon Go is never ending. And are they still doing like updates and DLC for the last Pokemon game that came out?
I don't think so, but I'm not sure. I mean, part of me is like, I wonder if this is where they're gonna announce the next Pokemon game.
Yeah, I mean, that could be too. Yeah, I feel like those would be Nintendo Directs, whereas this is like specifically a Pokemon Direct, but I guess I don't know.
So that is something to look forward to. We'll talk about that next week. I saw this poll you posted about.
Yeah, so apparently there was a poll on Push Square, which is a PlayStation-centric website, asking for fans to vote on their favorite main character from the Final Fantasy games. And well, it's no surprise that Cloud Strife won the poll, because of course he did. Clive Rossfield from Final Fantasy 16 came in second. And
that's interesting.
I do agree that Clive is a really good protagonist.
Really?
That I like quite a bit. He does a little bit have sort of that Cloud Strife sort of stoic thing, but he also, I feel like, has a little bit more personality in there as well. So he's sort of a good balance. And yeah, he's a pretty likable main character. And maybe we'll talk about it more later, but I did start the New Game Plus of Final Fantasy 16, so I'm working my way towards that platinum. But Ubisoft did reveal the Rayman DLC that is coming to Mario and Rabbids. We joked before, or I don't know if we were joking or just confused, but it seems like Mario and Rabbids is a 2023 game, because it's like every couple of weeks it's back in the news again for like a new DLC pack. This one brings, obviously, Rayman, and he's coming on August 30th, so later this month. And it seems like maybe it's going to be another like little biome with like story stuff, and it's adding Rayman, obviously. And I don't know, I really like this game. It is like a simplified version of like the tactics game, but I like all the content they've added to it. So it's cool to go back and revisit every now and then.
Now, this next thing had me pretty excited because I did not read this, but PS5 sales are up, and there's rumors of Sony releasing a slim version of the console, which is very interesting to me.
Yeah, would you be more inclined to go out and pick up a slim version as opposed to the current version?
I think so. I mean, I don't like how big it is. I've only ever seen one in real life under glass at a Best Buy, and who knows if that was like a full thing or just like a shell. But it's very big. It's bigger than I expected it to be. And if there's a cool looking slim version, I mean, I'm going to have to buy one eventually for when the second part of Final Fantasy VII comes out. That's, I think, going to be a PS5 exclusive. So this is a definite option that I would explore.
No, the real question is, if they do a slim model, do they get rid of the disk drive?
Good question.
And would that be a deal breaker and make you go back to the original model?
I don't know. I love, when it's a game I really care about, I do like to get a physical copy just because it's usually bundled with like a map, and I love those maps.
Yeah.
But I mean, a lot of companies are doing that thing now where they release a physical copy that doesn't have a disc, or at least that's happened at least one time.
Yeah, it's happened multiple times. Even like the Mass Effect Legendary Edition, they had like a special sort of collector's edition bundle that you could buy on their website that had like a steelbook case, but it didn't have a disc in it. And at the time I was like, why would you release it that way? Why wouldn't you have the game bundled with it? Why would you have to buy the game on top of this bundle? And then I was like, oh, but it kind of makes sense because they only have to make one collector's bundle and you can get it if you want it, but then you are not sort of locked into a specific like console or PC. You get to pick which platform you want. So I guess it kind of makes sense, but so the news here was that in the UK there was like, I think $100 off the console and sales jumped 75%, which is a huge jump in sales. And that the console dropped to $450 this last week. And maybe they are just trying to push out stock before the slim model gets released, which would make sense. But yeah, I do think we're probably about that mid-life cycle where you would get like a slim or even maybe a pro version of the console. But
I wonder if that will happen again. Because last generation we had the PS Pro, and what was the Xbox version called?
The Xbox One X.
Terrible.
Yeah.
But I wonder if that will happen again this time, where there's the stepping stone of, because I mean, there were all those GTA 6 leaks, and that game, by all accounts, is going to run. It's going to take intense hardware to run it because it's going to be huge. So I wonder if we will get like a pro or I wonder if it'll run natively well on current generation software, or if we'll get a pretty good one and then a like definitive edition on whatever the stepping stone PS5 Pro is.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it will be different, but I suspect it would be, if they do a pro model of the console, it'll be similar to with like base model PS4 versus PS4 Pro, where like if you just have the base model, you're a little bit locked out of those frame rate option versus resolution option, and you're just kind of stuck with the sort of lowest common denominator sort of a thing. But I never upgraded to the PS4 Pro, so
nor did I.
I just had a base model PS4 the entire generation. And
Zach,
go ahead.
Hideo Kojima's in the news. Was that what you were going to say?
I was going to say, you have in our show notes Strand, and I immediately was like, oh, that's got to be a Kojima thing.
Kojima says Death Stranding 2 will redefine Strand.
What was the first definition of Strand?
Great question, because Death Stranding a little bit predicted, or was it didn't really predict, but I mean, the pandemic happened, And people are like, oh man, the pandemic is just like Death Stranding, kind of, because like everyone is in their houses and there's just like delivery people delivering things, and there's this like thing going on. And I guess the COVID-19 pandemic really affected Kojima because he was like, man, I've thought a lot about it. He says at the beginning there was the theme of connecting, and after that I made a lot of notes about characters, settings, ideas, and so on, like how to connect to it. I put it together while maintaining a balance, but I had to rewrite everything because of Corona. In Death Stranding, it was justice to connect. But with the Corona crisis, pseudo-connections, such as remotes, have come to be emphasized. On the other hand, I feel that such pseudo-connections alone would not lead to fulfilling human lives. After all, humans need to go out into the outside world and move.
So yeah,
what does that mean?
It almost sounds like what he's saying is the first game, it was really just, what's his name? The main character.
Sam Porter Bridges?
Sam Porter Bridges that got out and did the connecting. And obviously that was the character you were playing. You were reconnecting America. But everybody else didn't. You know, like there was never a scene where it was like, kumbaya, everybody's out and about now.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what he's alluding to, that this is because of the pandemic, it is now going to be more like, oh, we're going to get that moment of people sort of finally vacating their little submerged safe houses, and it will be like everybody is sort of rebuilding on the surface and getting back out and making those connections themselves as well. And it's not just one guy whose job it is to sort of keep these various people who are hidden away in their little bunkers, keeping them connected, you know. So maybe that's what he's alluding to.
I don't know. It's I should rewatch that trailer for Death Stranding 2 they released, because I remember part of it there was like a giant ship in the air. So I wonder if now it will be similar to Metal Gear Solid 5, where you have like a home base that is constantly being built up and you have like a bunch of underlings, but the home base is mobile this time. It's like traveling around. I don't know. I'm so curious to see how that gameplay is going to evolve.
Yeah. I mean, it was like the first game was such a like visually interesting game. And this one I'm sure is going to be even more visually interesting because they have more power to work with on the PS5. But yeah, it definitely seems like he's going to do more and more crazy things.
I can't wait.
And the weird thing, and this is kind of a spoiler for the first game, but the trailer, that trailer that is embedded in this Kotaku article that we have linked in our show notes about Death Stranding 2, you see Fragile, who is the character played by the actress who has a name that I definitely know.
We all know it. We don't have to say it.
Yeah, we don't have to say it. You immediately know who I'm talking about. But she, in the first game, there's like this, you know, she's always wearing long sleeves and everything, so you can't see her body below the neck. And that's because there is a scene where some guy puts a bag on her head and forces her to run out in the timefall, which is rain that like when it hits you, it like ages you really quickly. And so as sort of like a torture for her, they like force her to run to, it's like, if I recall correctly, it's kind of like that sadistic choice where you force somebody to either like not do something and like a bomb will go off and people will die or something like that. Or, you know, you go and you save those people, but you have this horrific thing happen to your body. And so she kind of makes the choice to like save the people or whatever. But now her body, except for like from the neck up, she still looks young, but from the neck down, she looks really old. And in this trailer, I don't know if this is like prequel, but she is definitely normal.
I wonder if they figure out a way to reduce or reverse timefall.
Oh, so hold on. I'm fast forwarding the trailer. And weirdly, Sam Porter Bridges has like white hair, so I don't know this. Yeah. But now you see Fragile and she is completely covered. So maybe that's like a flashback scene?
I don't know.
I'm very confused.
Whatever
But that's
it's
par
going
for
to
the course.
redefine Strand.
It's true. Strand will be redefined. If you didn't know what it meant before, you'll get a new definition that you also will not understand.
The only other thing I have in the show notes for news is Devolver Digital has released, they're going to put out, I think it's happening this week, a Devolver Delayed showcase where they're proudly going to show off a bunch of games that they are delaying.
So the one that I see highlighted here is the Plucky Squire moving
I think
to
that is gonna get
2024. That it's sad, but there's so much. There's just so much that it's okay.
Yeah.
I will play it next year. But yeah. So I guess keep an eye out for that to see which games are going to get delayed.
We'll cover it, yeah. We'll talk about it next week after it's happened. But this week's all about Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah, so have you gotten a chance to pick this up yet?
No, I have not. I feel like I'm going to, because I do really like Dungeons and Dragons. I like the world of Faerun. And everything I've read about this is like, it's great. They've done all these things to, like, it's so dense and the scope of it is so insane. And all these cool little things are like hidden for you to find. It's almost intimidating, but it's, by all accounts, it seems like a great game. I don't think I've seen anyone say like, well, this is a problem with it.
Yeah, it does seem like this is immediately jumping to the tops of people's like game of the year watch list. And I even saw like a lot of developers on Twitter like congratulating Larian on the release of this game, and Remnant too. The developers for that game posted that meme. It became a meme. There was that showcase where it showed that there was like sex with a bear in this game.
Oh yeah.
So I guess bestiality is a thing in this game, and people are
I believe it's a druid in bear form.
It is. In fairness, I joke, but yeah. So that happens, and so they took that meme and they put the cover of Remnant 2 on the one guy, and the bear. They put the cover of Baldur's Gate 3, and they're like, yeah, we know. So basically, everybody's sort of bowing down to the release of Baldur's Gate 3. So it seems like this huge industry-wide like recognition of what an amazing thing it is that this game is out. And it like to hear people talk about it, it's interesting. It almost feels like they're talking about it with the reverence of something like Elden Ring, even where it's like that big a release for people. And it's like rarely do you get a game that is like so perfectly suited to the developers and the people that are there. And so they get to make this thing that is just sort of like in a weird space and time where it's just all the perfect things have sort of come together to make this thing. But I have also not picked it up because I am still unsure if the CRPG genre is my thing or not. But I've been tempted by it because so many people are talking about it and playing it. I have watched some of it. I just don't know if I would ever finish it if I did pick it up because it's also super long, and I've heard it's difficult.
That happened to me with Divinity Original Sin 2. I played it for a good amount of time, but then I think I got like to the second map, and I was like, man, I gotta do something else.
Yeah, that was about where I got with it too, because you like start off on that one island. Yeah. And then once you kind of complete things there, you're able to move to like a different area. And I fell off of it once I got there. I was like, I've played a lot of this, and I feel like I can't really go on anymore. So I am worried that if I were to pick it up, especially with like Starfield coming out next month, that I would.
It's on the horizon for sure.
That I would just not finish it, and that would be a bummer. But supposedly there's like 17,000 possible endings in this game.
Yeah.
Did you see the developers saying that? I think they had to walk it back a little bit because they were like, let's explain a little bit more. We're not saying that when you get to the end, there will be 17,000 possible different endings to it. It's more like you have so many different directions you can go in each and every conversation and quest and everything that everybody's playthrough will be wildly different. And so that's how you kind of get to that 17,000 number. Mm-hmm. And it's a little bit like the Mass Effect 3 thing of like, more or less, it's going to have to come down to one possible ending with maybe some slight variations on it.
Or three.
It's how you get there that is the real difference.
Yeah.
But yeah, people immediately take it as, oh, the ending has to be 17,000 different possible cutscenes. They're like, no, that's not what that means.
I took that to mean like the ending cutscene isn't going to be a cutscene. It'll be rendered like in the game engine. And like, depending on what you do, like different people will be there or like different things will be happening in the background or something. But yeah, I wonder the whole plot. I assume you get the thing out of your head, but I don't know what the overall plot will be as far as like, I assume you stop the mind flayers or whatever.
Yeah, you go after Cthulhu and take him out. The interesting thing that popped up after this game came out was the debate over the Xbox Series S and its limitations. So we kind of talked about this previously about how the Series S had kind of become a little bit of an albatross.
Yeah.
And so right now, Baldur's Gate 3 is sort of an unintentional PlayStation 5 exclusive when it comes to console release. Like, obviously it's on PC, but there's no Xbox version right now. They're working on one, and it's supposed to come out at some point. The series, it could come out now if it was just on Series X, but Microsoft has this sort of stipulation that if you're gonna release a game on Xbox, you also have to have a Series S version, and that it has to have feature parity between the two.
Yeah.
And Larian is struggling to get the split screen multiplayer feature working on the Series S. And so they were like, well, we could ship this now and it would be there launch day with the other consoles and PC and everything if you allowed us to remove the split screen multiplayer feature from the Series S version. But Microsoft is like, nope. If you're going to release it on Xbox, it has to be the full game, no compromises on both consoles. And so yeah, it's going to take them time to get that working, and it might not happen before the end of the year. So that's definitely a bummer if you're an Xbox person and you were looking forward to this game. But yeah, I think this game will be up there for people come Game of the Year
I'm
talk.
sure. It's definitely going to get nominated.
Yeah. It might not beat out Tears of the Kingdom. It might not beat out Starfield. We're not sure about that one, but it'll probably be right up there.
Would you put Pikmin 4 on that list? Let's get into what we've been playing, watching.
I've played a little bit more Pikmin 4. I do think it'll be on the list. It's hard to say right now because it's just such a crazy year and there's still so many more games coming out. But I've been enjoying it. It's just like kind of fun and chill to go and run around and collect items and do the different, like you have those warp pipes that you go down and you're sort of exploring those and collecting items and everything. And then they have like the Dandori battles that are like, some of them are sort of you're racing against like a computer opponent to like go around this space and collect items, and you're trying to do it faster and better than the other guy. And then they also have some that are like these timed ones where you have to collect like a certain amount of items in a certain amount of time. And then they also have like the nighttime exploration ones that are a little bit more like tower defense, where you have like a special type of Pikmin that you don't have in like the normal when you're just exploring during the day. And this is how you find these the spacemen that are part of your crew, but they're like covered in like leaves and stuff. And the only way to like get rid of the leaves and sort of cure them of whatever that is to get like a special resource that you get from like going in at night. Mm-hmm. And so you have to go and you're defending these like, I don't even know how you describe it. It's like a weird thing that has like glowy parts around it, and like the enemy creatures at night, like their eyes turn red and they go and attack those, and so you have to basically defend it for a certain amount of time, and then you get the resource and you can cure the person and you're good to go. I don't love doing those, so I feel like I will do the minimum amount necessary to get through those, but I've been enjoying the game. I only have the first 3 areas unlocked, I think, and I have 100%ed 2 of the 3. So I will keep going and maybe report back, but I've been enjoying it. I think it's a fun game. And then the other game that I have played this week is actually vaguely similar in that you want to explore during the day and collect things, and then at nighttime it gets crazy and weird and you don't want to be out and about. It's Dredge. I don't know if you remember this.
Yes, I watched, I think someone played the first maybe 3 hours of it, and it seemed very cool.
Yeah, so it is basically a fishing game where you have like your little tugboat and you're going around fishing, and the art style is really beautiful. You have to look it up to see it to be able to know what I'm talking about. But I normally am not into fishing games, but somehow this game really did it for me. I got like immediately hooked on it, to use a fishing pun. Mm-hmm. But you're also like dredging up like resources that you can use to upgrade your ship, and like when you catch fish or you're collecting items, when you manage your inventory, it's kind of like that Resident Evil thing where you're sort of playing Tetris with the different items to like fill out your inventory space. And then so like when I first started playing it, I was just like hooked on going around collecting the resources to try to upgrade my ship to the maximum. And so I did that relatively quickly. And then the map is laid out in such a way that like the middle is sort of where like the hub area that you start out in is. There's like two or three little ports that you can pull into and talk to people, and there's like quests and stuff. But then there's also in the 4 corners of the map, there are like these different little archipelago areas that you can go to, and there's more people to talk to and more quests to do there. But you'll find like different types of fish in each of the 4 different quadrants, and each area sort of has their own like weird monster that they're dealing with that will sort of attack you if you get close to them. And at nighttime it gets really like kind of foggy and creepy, and it's a little bit what is the Lovecraftian, and sort of the
there's
creatures.
like eldritch horror.
Yeah, and so it is supposed to be sort of this like blending of the sort of cozy like chill genre, but also like this like creepy, not horror, but you know what I mean. It's sort of a combo of those, and it's really interesting. There's like an interesting story sort of that it's built around to sort of piece together, that you find these little bottles with notes in them, and they have some like backstory to them, and like some of the different people you talk to will sort of fill you in on some stuff. But it is a lot more engaging and gripping than I thought it would be when I first started, and I kind of couldn't put it down once I started playing it. So
what did you play it on PS5 or?
Yeah, I played it on PS5, and I platinumed it actually.
Wow.
It was another one of those games that I started playing, and I was like, I'm not too far from a platinum on this. I might as well just finish it out. And so I did. And it was fun. I really enjoyed it. I remember, it was early in the year. I think this came out in like March or April or something like that. Yeah. So it was before Tears of the Kingdom, but I remember a lot of people saying like, oh, this is my early front runner for Game of the Year. They're like, that'll change once Tears of the Kingdom comes out.
I could see it winning in like the best indie game category.
Yeah, I can definitely see it winning best indie game of the year for sure. Like this one's definitely up there, and one that you should definitely go back and check out if you haven't yet. So we should put it on our top 10 builder. I'm just not sure where. Right now we have 10. We finally filled it out, but I have not played very much Like a Dragon Ishin. I didn't finish Hi-Fi Rush, and we've talked about it before. I didn't love that game as much as everybody else. So I feel like that one will fall off the list, and this might be the time.
Oh my god.
Dare I put it above or below Dead Space Remake at number 4?
Oh wow. Well, I didn't play that, so yeah, it's up to you.
I was going to say, I was hoping that you would have played Baldur's Gate 3 so we could also slot Baldur's Gate 3 in here somewhere.
I might. Next week, I'm going to have a bunch of free time, so it's possible that I'm going to dip my toes into it. So come next week at this time, it's possible we will be adding it.
Other stuff on the list, at 5 we have Wild Hearts, at 6 we have Metroid Prime Remastered. I didn't finish Metroid Prime Remastered, to my great shame.
Nor did I.
That and Like a Dragon Ishin, I was playing both of those games early in the year, and I just like hit a weird mood where I was like not in the mood to play games for a little while, and so I kind of did other things, and so I never got around to finishing those.
Well, there was, towards the end of Metroid Prime Remastered, there's a lot of backtracking, which I found to be not fun.
Yeah, and it also got like randomly difficult in terms of like the combat, and this one particular area that I was going down where I like died, and that hadn't happened before. And so I was like, I don't want to replay all of that stuff that I just did. And so I kind of fell off of it a little bit because of that. But like, great game. People love it. I think both Dead Space Remake, Metroid Prime Remastered, and Like a Dragon Ishin, all three of those could possibly be up there for people in their top 10. But I think I'm going to move them down and put Dredge at number 4 for now. Did we put Pikmin on here?
No, not yet, I don't think.
Now the real question is, where does Pikmin 4 belong? Before or after Dredge?
I don't know.
I haven't finished it yet, so maybe I'll put it below for now. Sadly, that does drop off 2 games that we previously had on the list.
Yeah, so say goodbye to Hi-Fi Rush and Dead Cells Return to Castlevania.
Yeah, I mean, I liked what I played of the Return to Castlevania stuff. I think it's very cool. I think there's also like Signature Edition Games is also releasing like a physical copy of Dead Cells with the Castlevania stuff bundled. Oh. And it has like the Castlevania art on the cover of it. And that's cool. There's like a collector's edition that comes with a whole bunch of stuff on it and like a CD soundtrack, which is cool because they have all those like redone versions of the Castlevania music in like the Dead Cells style. Mm-hmm. That's a very cool release that I would get if I wanted to spend the money on it, but I don't. But it's a very cool thing. So yeah, just to recap our top 10 list for now that we are building, and things will change, I'm sure, but we've got Zelda Tears of the Kingdom at number 1, Final Fantasy 16 at number 2, Fire Emblem Engage at 3. I feel like that will drop down at some point, even if it's just because of recency or non-recency bias. At 4, we got Dredge. 5, we got Pikmin 4. 6, Dead Space Remake. 7, Wild Hearts. 8, Metroid Prime Remastered. 9, Viewfinder. And 10, Like a Dragon Ishin.
Solid list.
And I feel like Baldur's Gate, Sea of Stars, and Starfield could all end up on this list at some point.
And let's not forget, eventually Silksong is going to come out.
It might not be this year, though.
Yeah, I hope it isn't, actually.
Yeah, I was going to say, what would your number 1 game... You would be really battling between Silksong, Tears of the Kingdom, and Starfield.
Yeah.
And potentially Baldur's Gate 3.
True. I don't know.
All right, tell me what you've been watching and playing.
Real quick, I've been reading Chainsaw Man since it has been coming out, and that's been great, but I usually will just like go to a website and just like read it from there, and there's like a bunch of ads that pop up. But I finally was like, I'll check out the official way to read manga on my phone. And so I downloaded the Shonen Jump app, which is just $2 a month, which is kind of crazy. And it's pretty great. And I started reading and completed, even though it's still in progress, I caught up to another manga that is, I guess, getting animated later this year, maybe in 2024, called Kaiju number 8, which was great, and I recommend. And I also started reading another one called Sakamoto Days, which I just started. I'm only on like chapter 7, but it's cool. I have. It's been a long time since I've read comics, and it's nice to just like have them on my phone and easily available. And the fact that it's only $2 a month is actually kind of crazy.
That is crazy, actually.
But if you're bored at work and you don't feel like listening to a podcast, this rolls into my parting wisdom. Check out the Shonen Jump app because it's very feature rich and it's got a ton of stuff.
I may actually do that because, yeah, they're definitely, even if you're just like sitting down for a cup of coffee, just like to flip through some pages on your phone would be like.
And the chapters are pretty,
easy.
they go by quick. Like Chainsaw Man, especially, I feel like chapters sometimes are, only 15 pages or something like that. But there's like, I think around 115. I'm not sure what Chainsaw Man is up to these days, but it's great. I think I like it more than the anime. But yeah, check it out. The Shonen Jump app.
That's good advice. The one thing I forgot to mention in what I've been watching is we talked a little bit about it before we started recording, but I did start the Final Fantasy 16 New Game Plus.
Yes.
And it like definitely feels like the developers designed it in such a way that they imagined anyone who plays this game will definitely play New Game Plus. Which maybe that's how they all feel, because I can't remember the last time I did a New Game Plus in a game. It's been a long time. Like, I think it's great that they offer them, but I usually don't ever get around to doing them because by the time I finish it, it's like, I need a break from this. I need to play something different.
Yeah.
Or it's just like, yeah, I don't have time for that. But to get the platinum in Final Fantasy 16, which is something I would kind of like to do since I'm like 2 trophies away, you do have to finish it a second time on New Game Plus mode. And it feels like they designed it intentionally to feel like the best playthrough is the New Game Plus one, because a lot of people would prefer to play it on the hardest difficulty available right from the start. You don't get that until you finish the game once, and then you get Final Fantasy mode, which is part of New Game Plus mode. But also, like, you have different combat encounters and such. Like some of the enemies that you face later on in the game start appearing earlier on in the game in the New Game Plus version. And you get like different gear and equipment, and it's possible to craft, or maybe not craft, but definitely upgrade your accessories at the blacksmith in New Game Plus mode. You can't do it in the first one, your first playthrough. And it feels like most of the time when you're getting like new weapons and gear throughout the first playthrough, and when you're like crafting them, you can only craft them at like a green item level. And so obviously there's like blue and purple and gold, and you really don't start getting those until towards the end of your first playthrough. And then in the second playthrough, you finally start getting like blue and purple and gold, and you can start crafting and upgrading those. So it feels like items and accessories and things like that really don't start getting interesting until you do New Game Plus. And like there's
such a crazy design choice.
It is a crazy design choice, but like the accessories, being able to upgrade them, I found I didn't really swap out my accessories once I found a few that I liked in the first playthrough, and they were all like, you get a gold one that is like 5% damage increase across the board. And it's just like, that's not a big difference maker, I feel like. So I felt like consistently throughout the first playthrough that the accessories were fairly dull and uninteresting. But now it's like, oh, if you take this one that was like upgrading a specific icon ability like 7% more damage, if you craft the upgrade to it, it jumps to like 20%. And now suddenly, oh, this is worthwhile now. So like, it is crazy to me that not only did they finally give the difficulty that people wanted to play from the start, but they also finally made like weapons and accessories and your gear that much more interesting. It's like, this is what it should have been from the start. But it feels like they wanted you to play through once to focus on the story, and then they give you all the good stuff that you actually wanted the first time through in the second playthrough, which is crazy to me. But
well, good tip for playing Final Fantasy 16. Play it twice.
Play it twice. Yeah, I've been skipping all of the cutscenes and dialogue to try to make it go by faster, and so I have like flown through it so far, at least as far as I've made it. And I hit I guess it's technically the second time jump. The first time jump is only like a tutorial thing, but you can skip all that entirely when you start your New Game Plus, like the intro sort of tutorial stuff, and you basically begin at the point you would have after the demo stuff. So, but yeah, I'm enjoying it. I mean, the combat is very fun in the game, so I don't mind playing some of that again. But like right now, since I'm not playing Baldur's Gate 3, we're like a little bit between releases. So I've just had some time and I was like, I want to play something. So I just, for whatever reason, jumped back into Final Fantasy, and I've been enjoying it for that. But anyway, on that note, go ahead and follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and X/Twitter at Starside Cafe. And we'll catch you on the next one.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.